Hello. So this is the third video. So let's check motivation. I think the image is weird. Anyway, it's very weird, isn't it? Anyway, doesn't matter. I don't care. Yeah. Om again again odan sambe mage saradong bola yansen jogging adon ye pema done shesunda gordo gando mombe god ke jesuda to ke jingi lo ti shesus guru pema sidi Oma hum benze guru pema sidi hum. Oma hum benze guru pema sidi hum. Oma hum benze guru pema sidi hum. Okay. So this is the third video. My motivation today is less to enter this time into technical issues about what we commented last time, which was the mindfulness of our body. I'm a little bit more inclined to share with people some thoughts I have been hearing in my head because these last month, years, but maybe even days are rough somehow for some reason. And so I think it would be interesting to comment how the practice of the Dharma and the training, why would we train and what does it have to do with the world, and why would somebody dedicate time to practice that seems useless now on a social point of view, but it's actually absolutely not useless in my point of view. So this is a little bit what I want to express somehow. It's a little bit more personal probably, but we will come back to the mindfulness of the body, speech and mind in the next future, as soon as the olives are picked and harvested, because this is the olives time in the south and we're about to harvest them. So why would one train oneself, and how does this start with the body? I thought it was really interesting to notice that in my point of view, I mean more my experience when I was a child, I really felt spontaneously relationship with something inside of me that was completely okay. And I could feel it when I would dance. I said it many times, but I'm repeating this again and again because I would like to relate to this simple thing that actually, in my case, it was obvious and I had faith in that, and I had also some kind of clarity about that space without understanding how this state of feeling blissful as I would dance could have anything to do with whatever it seems to be society. And, you know, when you grow up, I grew up in the United States, you see the TV and you see all these things happening, these people fighting. And then I started to understand that people would go to wars, and I would ask my mother, what is that? You know, what is this? I would ask her many questions, actually, to my mother all the time. Like I would ask her, well, people die each second, people are born each second. And I remember it, I was very young, I suppose I was around 5 years old, and I remember the moment I said, but Mom, they're always the same people. And that was interesting because I was not seeing it as a linear point of view, like people that are reincarnated. It was more like an obvious statement. And then I later thought it was so obvious that I wanted so strongly things. I really wanted things, I desired things, and I felt happy I could have this doll, I could have this stuff. Sometimes it would be even a simple thing, like I would like so much to have this ticket to take the bus all week. I was a little bit more like 10 years old or 12, and I could go alone in Paris already to my dance session in my school, and I wanted this bus ticket that you can use every day the same one, so it was extraordinary for me. And actually, what I experienced when I was at that young age is before I met Dharma, because at that time nobody around me was teaching Dharma. There was no books about that when I was that young in my family. I remember that I felt about the dolls, and then about the tickets, and then about many things, that actually when I got something that I wanted so much, I was really like having that thing and feeling this is weird because now I have it, but I don't have it. Nothing special is happening about this. The amount of desire I had for it, and now what I feel once I got it, it's like if I'm going to want something else. And that was something very obvious in a very young age. So this to tell you that there is something simple in the motivation one can feel towards enlightenment, like the Buddha stated and like his testimony. And in the same time, it's very complicated to get free from many things that just always take all the space and all the mental space. So this is a little bit how I'm starting to talk about this, because it's a very difficult talk. I want to relate a little bit to how, as somebody who practices prayers and spirituality, it's not easy to have some kind of a social relationship with people when it comes to tensions and aggression. It's very difficult to bring peace because somehow people very often react aggressively towards peaceful proposals. And nowadays, a little bit more, I think, maybe. I think that when I was younger, it was a little bit more noble. It was viewed as a noble opinion, no, to believe or want peace. In this case, I'm not talking about paradise on earth, because I know life in the society is not easy. It's not that I think it could be suddenly become completely easy. On another hand, I do understand that sometimes when we really feel sincerely related to getting out the best of humankind and getting out the best of ourselves and feeling this space I told you I felt when I was a child, that we are looking forward how we could grow and maybe get older and become somebody that really expresses fully this precious state of being which was already there as a child. Sometimes we feel that it's like a need to go inside, not because you are not wanting to relate with people or to relate with issues, but more because you feel that you really need to clarify something in yourself that is not clear enough because of all the emotions we have and all the aggressions that happen when we try to be truthful and sincere. And how can we be skillful? I'm not skillful naturally at all. It's really not easy for me. And so I actually at one point thought I better shut up, because if I shut up, I'm bringing more peace on earth. Then when I tell what I really think, people don't like that. So this is what I wanted to relate with. So for that, to try to be as clear as possible in my expression of what I'm wanting to share, the Buddha himself, it is said that when he did get enlightened, he retired from the world somehow more even. So he did reach enlightenment. I'm not going to tell the whole story today. It's more to point out this aspect of the story, the historical story of Buddha Shakyamuni, that once he did really conquer and was victorious over all the inner obstacles, his own obstacles, that's how you say? Yeah, all the difficult things, hindrances. When that happened, he really got free he really got completely free. He understood the meaning of suffering, the roots of suffering, what causes, where does it come from, how to solve that. And in the same time as he really saw the path, how the path is, and he saw that his own perception was impossible to explain. And this is the point, is that even at that little level of what I'm talking about to you, it's impossible to explain when something inside of you just lets go of the clinging, and that you understand that it's overwhelmingly simple and in the same time incredibly unlimited and vast and rich. And you cannot explain that. You cannot explain that. It doesn't make any sense to get into aggression and to get into violence when you are in that state. It's not funny. It's just that the laughter comes because at one point you understand that anyway, the only way we could relate with this duality is by breathing better, and the laughter is a good breath, It brings some joy. And so Buddha said, come on, there's no way anybody's going to understand this. People are having their lives, their way of seeing things. And at that time, 2,500 years ago, with all, the people had like caste systems, which actually the Buddha, it's quite amazing. At that time, he was able to create a kind of a society with no caste inside of this caste thing. And before he created anything, he said, I cannot explain to people, so I'm just going to stay quiet and say nothing, And I think this is something that happens to all of us. I think that the story says this because it happens to people who are deeply committed to some kind of a love story with what we feel inside that is precious, and that is really the human quality of discovering our incredible potential, the potential of human beings. When we start to discover that this potential of all beings, but in human beings it's a little bit more in touch, it's a little bit more possible for human beings to take some kind of a decision and to change oneself, to train on oneself. And then you understand there's an alchemic possibility with people who did leave the tools and explain things. Of course, each time that you start again, you have to restart everything again. That's how it is. It's like you learn a language, but anyway, you're speaking the language the way you're able to, even if you do speak a language that millions of people spoke before you. Each person is different, and that's how the language is alive through everybody. So the teachings are the same. They live inside of people. But they do exist and they do work, and it's really effective. And so you would wonder at one point, when the Buddha finally accepted to teach, and finally people said, well, come on, you cannot just stay there and not share what happened to you. You have to share. We want it. They really wanted it. And that's the point, no? If you don't want it, it's difficult to get it. You can have a little bit of sparkle of understanding you need to train on yourself, but maybe putting all the guilt on others is easier, or putting all our anger, spelling it out, maybe it's easier. Or maybe believing I'm such a noble and wonderful person because I'm speaking out for this or for that. But on another hand, how do you deal with peace in your life? How do you deal with the thing that just annoys you, And so when I come back to myself, after giving this explanation about why the Buddha somehow probably didn't speak out immediately and took his time to teach, and then really waited that people would want that, because it's so impossible to explain. So this is why art, I think, I believe so much in art, because music, dance, theater, painting, sculpture, if it doesn't become a materialistic kind of issue, like about me and my ego and how important I am and how much people admire me and how much money I get, if it's not about that, which can happen, but if it's not about that person is involved in the art can really become a way of feeling the preciousness of being human and of sharing this treasure that we all have without we're looking for it all over the place, but we have it, so you can, it's like your glasses on the nose or on the head. You can look for them, but actually it's already there. So you won't find them out there. And so at one point when you train on yourself, of course you have to start by your body, because your body is the way that you have some kind of a anchor. I don't know if the word is right. It's like this thing on the boats, how if you have something that can bring you back. So it's the body mindfulness. But then you get to the speech mindfulness, and the speech mindfulness is really complicated. So at the first point, the best thing to do is to breathe and to say mantras and prayers, because it's really difficult to relate with speech before we hear the silence of our own voice, and then the power of the sound in that silence. Before that happens, it's very difficult to relate with rhythm and speech, and how, of course, you can inspire people because you're so straightforward, or you're so inspired and so certain about whatever it is you believe in. But on another hand, sometimes people really need to relate to the contradictions of ourselves. So yes, I appreciate that people love each other and treat well each other, and that we have good relationships. And on another hand, they piss me off, they annoy me. And so lately, I knew, because I am interested in astrology for a long time, I know a little bit about astrology, so I knew that these years from 2020 and so on, until 2000 and maybe 26 at least, we're going to be rough, hard times, And I knew that. I felt it also, inside of me, but I knew it because of the stars and the mathematics of the stars. And then you start to understand how can you relate with difficult times and stay you stay on your path in these difficult times. So it's like if you don't really fear what's going to come, but on another hand, you kind of prepare yourself, It's a little bit like age. That if I don't die, I'm going to get older. So if you relate with age, not that you fear age, but that you understand that getting older is part of what you are experiencing as an adventure. So it's not the same thing than if you are like, imagine that you're always going to be young and healthy. It's always going to be easy. Nothing bad that happens to others is going to happen to me. So then when it happens, you get a little bit like completely overwhelmed, And so I was kind of in that state. But lately, things got a little bit more difficult. And I noticed that since... it's since this flu thing that happened in 2020, it started to become very difficult to relate with each other, because somehow it's like if you have to choose your camp, do you believe in this or do you believe in that? And so it's also for Buddhists. Are you a Buddhist who does social showing off, or are you a Buddhist that this selfish praying for all living beings in a very hidden place? And then you suddenly start to understand that it's a kind of a world in which people are not really easily relating to each other with the power of listening and the power of absorbing what's going on, what's the complexity of the world. Because you feel that it is a simple thing inside of you that is completely happy and blissful, but what's going on is very complex. And what people kind of are waiting for is a kind of a certainty of how you can actually rely with the issues of the world. And so, for example, today, no, I'm going to start before. A few days ago, I started to have water coming in the house because of too much raining and issues about the roof. And that was a little bit complex. And then I suddenly, of course, saw this very simple teaching we have in Buddhism that's about impermanence, that whatever you have, you won't have it someday. Very obviously sure. Like, I have a house, maybe I won't have a house anymore, or maybe I will die, so I won't have the house anymore. So anyway, one way or another, I won't have it anymore. So this is the nature, no, of having a house, is that you don't have it. It is exactly like I told you in the beginning. I have a doll, but I don't have it. So this duality is not easy to share with people, because whatever you talking to, it's going to provoke the opposite. So you have a house, but you don't have it. And then suddenly I was alone, and I was a little bit helpless, not too much helpless, but a little bit helpless. And the water comes in, and then the water is coming on machines, probably on the computer or whatever, and then things like that. So anyway, I managed my way out, but I had this feeling suddenly of how easy it was to just lose your quality of life because the roof lets the water come in. And you would say this is obvious, of course, and we have lots of things happening, no? Like could be fire, could be sickness, everything that's happening. We could lose all of it, at one point. But on another hand, I really thought this is the one thing happening that I'm practicing now. I'm practicing to really live this. I'm going to live this fully, because this is Dharma, what happens when it's nice and when it's not nice. And so things sort out a little bit, but there was actually a conflict happened. The conflict that happened was absolutely not obviously because of me, because I actually said nothing, but some person was annoyed with something that had to do with that roof. And then I didn't really answer in an aggressive way, so nothing happened. It just happened that that person annoyed himself alone on me. And then I was left alone, not only with somebody who didn't help me, but on the top of it, somebody who argued on me, not argued on me, really was mad with me. And so I experienced, so now this is obviously not fair, but on another hand, I don't know, maybe it's fair. I have no idea if it's fair or not fair. And it doesn't matter anyway if it's fair or not fair. I just have to live that. So this is when the mind training comes, because your body training, your body mindfulness brings you into a possibility of not always going all over the place, that you can say, this is the other videos I explain, how you can stay on your thread and how you can keep on the path. So the body is so important, no? Because the body starts to bring mindfulness back to you instead of you having to remember to be mindful. You don't remember anymore, the body brings you back. So that's how the body becomes very precious. And also the body is like the tool of learning, of training, all of it. So it becomes really like a vehicle for the adventure of this alchemy. Then the speech is not easy, as I said, because the speech is a little bit like how you go between in and out. It's like breathing. So this going between in and out, it really takes some maturity, some experience. But then you have the mind training, and the mind training is essential, because if the mind training is not applied in the Buddhist point of view, if the mind training is not applied, it's really easy to make out of the powers that one acquires by the practice the kind of steadiness and the sense of blissful presence that can involve, thanks to the practice. It would be really easy to misuse it out of not practicing mindfulness and also mind training. So the mind training is how do you practice with the fact that you have relationship with people, animals, things, and that brings you back to how is your reaction, how is your emotion, how is it that you can become an alchemist of your own energies. So the alchemy of your own energy in the Buddhist point of view, as I understand it, is not that much about becoming such an important person that is all powerful all over internet. It's not so much this that earns so much money and is so successful. Okay, why not? I don't care. It's not, but anyway, for Buddha, it was not about that, because Buddha, he was already rich and he was already going to be king, so he doesn't care about that. He left it because he wanted to find something essential. So this is the main purpose. And so the mind training is that actually that's where you see your Dharma practice. You really notice your Dharma practice when these unknowing things happen to you. This person tells you that and that. And you know that and this is my whole life like that, you know, in the heart, in your heart, you really want something good, but then it doesn't work, you know, how come it didn't work? This time it works, this time doesn't work. And anyway, I have to let it go, whatever, touch and go. It works, doesn't work, let go. Because if you're too happy because it works, then you get full of yourself. If you're too unhappy because it doesn't work, then you get miserable. So this is the duality, yeah? You see? You understand the duality we were talking about. In, out, me and the others like me, don't like me, left hand, right hand, one eye, the other eye, all that. Silence and sound, body and space, all of it. And so what about social relationship? And so we come into my issue today. Today I was somehow in one of the groups that exist on internet where people were relating about practical things, that has to do with, you know, life in the area where I live. And then came out issues about politics and about people wanting to kind of, you know, express themselves strongly because they felt that they had not really any communication about these issues with this group. The group is quite big. It's about 800 or 900 people. And then started, the thing very easily, like a fire, You put wood in the fire spreads, and this fire started. A few people trying to keep that, and then others getting upset, and then others saying, shut them up. Shut up the people, everybody has to shut up. So actually they did. They shut up everybody, more or less. Said, go somewhere else to do that. But I was looking at my own mind as I was living that, and I was feeling, wow, it's interesting, because on one hand, we're trying to talk about very important issues, Why are people killing each other? Why is there so much suffering? How is it? I can't stand it. I can't stand it that the, how you call it? The medias, all the means we have nowadays to see more or less what is our idea of what happens all over the world. It always happen things, no? It always does, but we have some kind of a huge amount of informations that we're trying to sort out, and it's very difficult to see the realities of suffering, because we have tried to create a life in which we are not at all in any problems. We have all the machines to do everything we want. We have all the food. We have all the shelters. And so we kind of, especially in the Western world, we kind of created an environment in which we try to imagine it will never happen to us, this horrible thing that suddenly everything is just falling apart, really, literally. And it's even hurts me when I talk about it. It's true, because when I see some images of what's happening in several countries in the world nowadays, it really hurts me. And so I have to relate with my feeling of suffering. Even if the suffering is not directly mine, how does it make me feel bad, And then it's very difficult, because if you want to call people for relating with communication or for peace, you will notice, and maybe you notice that most of the people who really did speak out for peace were killed in history. Lots of them, they were killed. I think, excuse me, I was just distracted because somebody is coming here just now that I'm talking with you. So I think that the fact that I try to concentrate myself on the essential and to create a relationship about the Dharma it is also a way of having a social activity. The social activity is a little bit like I said before, you know, as the language or the songs, they live, and the dances, they live in the body of us. It comes from one body to the other. That's what you call a lineage. And then when people, they have this inspiration and desire to make of their own being the alchemy of goodness, they are creating in the world something that is much helpful for peace, or for at least creating more goodness or more compassion or more love in the real sense, the genuine sense, which would be to listen to each other, and which would be to not always bark on each other too much, you know, or to tell this one should shut up because what he says is not right because it's me and this, and then it, you know, the fire spreads all over the place, and then you cannot stop it because it just spreads. You just wait, it burned everybody, and then it's it, then it's finished. So controlling our own energies is very important, because it's not that we want to control because we would want to squeeze what we feel. No, it's that we train, and that's a little bit what I'm looking forward to be, is one of the persons who can contribute to the training we can do of body, speech and mind in order to be useful on the planet and to be useful one for another. And in my case, and I think that's respect, we can respect that. Maybe some people feel that they want to be to do militants in political realm, or they want to speak out, or they want to have some kind of opinion about who is right, who is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done. But actually, in my case, this is not what I feel. What I feel is that it is also possible for some people to feel that maybe they already did that militancy in other lives. Maybe they already had that potential in themselves, but this is not why they came back on Earth. Maybe they came back on Earth to be part of the vessels that will cherish wisdom, and that will make wisdom not be burnt by these fires, but at the opposite, be like enlightened, that all this suffering and these difficult things, because of the mindfulness of your body, because of the mind training, and because of the speech realm that starts to be free from, I would say, the duality of right and wrong, or I like, I don't like, or his enemy or he's a friend. When the speech starts to go out and in non-duality, and then that case, it's possible to relate with people or to relate with situations in a way that can bring peace. And maybe not everybody is supposed to go to manifestations, and maybe not everybody is supposed to speak out or to take issues for this or for that. Maybe some people have really the mission to preserve the wisdom, to make the wisdom alive and not die among human beings. You know, there is a prophecy in Buddhism that says that at the times of degenerations, degeneration comes because the human beings start to be able to do harmful things one to the other, and more they seem to find that a normal thing, and more they do harmful things one to the others, more the times degenerate. And in that time, it is said that there is only some kind of, you know, footprints of wisdom. You don't find anymore all the wisdom that was really carried by living people from one generation to the other. And so the fact that people can really dedicate themselves to wisdom and to do their best to understand that wisdom is not, it is not an opinion, it is not something, it's not complicated, it's very simple, because two wise people don't argue. But it does take many forms, and it does mean to be able to accommodate all the different issues of different people, different point of view, different religions, different also emotions. People's emotions are really not easy also to cope. So this is what I wanted to talk about, and I think that at the end my conclusion about that is that I find it really very important to get into this body, mind, and speech training now. I mean, if it wasn't yesterday, if it wasn't 10 years ago, it's really is very important, because nowadays with all the conflicts going on, this is really one of the way that we can sustain the possibility that wisdom keeps on growing among human beings, so that we can cope with the difficult emotions. You know, if there's 10 people going okay, but just one comes in and is not okay, that can be enough to make the whole group feel bad. But if these 10 persons are trained, that one person that comes in does not create that division and that kind of, I would say, drama. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about. This is the third video, and thank you. May all beings reach the desire to develop and share wisdom, and may we all be able to understand that anyway we can create altogether something that is very simple and much better than becoming angry and becoming, how would I say that, too much needy or complaining, all these things. It's much better to follow the Buddha's path, which is the path of our own essential qualities. Thank you very much.